right, welcome to the Shaolin AI podcast. This is your go-to AI podcast to learn about AI, to discuss it, talk about the recent happenings in the world of AI and things like that. Today we have a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Kevin.
Yes, we've got Kevin Dolan from Exit Group, um, and Twitter alike. And how do we know each other?
We were part of a fun little group chat that has become uh way bigger in some people's minds than it actually was at the time. I had a guy at the NATO conference ask me, I'm just gonna jump right into this. I apologize.
That's fine.
Um, he asked me, do you identify with the Deseret Nationalist movement? And I was like, that was like 12 guys in a group chat. We were goofing around making laser eye memes.
Yeah,
But
just making
that's
each other laugh. But
yeah, that's how me and Zach know each other.
yeah, and then we went from there. But then also, I'm a member of Exit Group,
That's
and
right.
Exit Group is uh, where Shaolin AI comes from, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Um, I had been kind of working on this idea for a few years, actually. Like I was thinking about it. And it kind of materialized just because I felt like I was forced to by you.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about it for a good long while, and it was kind of just a question of putting together. um I think honestly, when I look, because I think a lot about like the who actually closes and figures out what they want to do. And I think where you started to get grip and traction was when you brought a handful of other people into the project, so that you know, if you goofed around and didn't get it done, they'd be like, what the hell? And like that I think having one or two people to just sort of check you and keep you on track and keep you caring about it was the beginning of it becoming real. And you guys developed the curriculum. You started, sort of shopping around for like what the guys might want to pay for, basically. Um, and yeah, it was really cool to watch. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of have told people I'm like a reluctant entrepreneur because I've never really been that kind of guy, I guess. I've always been a W-2 wage slave, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, kind of being in a group of guys all focused on kind of a similar goal helped kind of push me over the edge. So here we are today. But anyway, that's not what
Yeah,
we're here
man.
to talk about necessarily. Um, but we're here to talk about propaganda in the age of AI, how AI will change uh, propaganda and culture in general. Not and I'm talking about propaganda in the broadest sense. So not just like psyops and the government trying to like shoot things into your brain or whatever, but also like cultural happenings, cultural memes, things that kind of images that resonate, I guess, and ideas that get pushed, and how AI can change the landscape and has already been changing things. So yeah, um let me share my screen. So this is what inspired um the most recent uh happening. So first I'll show the first tweet. So somebody just did a tweet as they do on Twitter. You know, people tweet, I guess. But um what happened was somebody I actually saw this before the AI got involved. So someone was like, what piece of visual art destroys you every time you see it. And like people were sharing different paintings, and oh, this is my favorite painting. If it was me, maybe I would share Crows Over Cornfield or something like that.
Hmm.
But this person shared this. I had never seen this artwork before, not particularly my thing. But then they go on to explain that the reason um, that this artwork means so much to them is because the artist painted it and intentionally left it unfinished because he was dying of AIDS. And and so anyway, a bunch of people were like, "Oh wow, what a story." And then shortly after, one intrepid individual said, "Oh, the story behind this painting is so sad, but now we can use AI to accomplish what he couldn't finish." And so what you're seeing here is essentially like AI autocomplete. This is called outpainting, if you're unfamiliar with it, where essentially you can pick a portion or an image, an entire image or a portion of an image, and then tell the AI to fill in the rest based off of what it's looking at. So basically, all this person did was hop into one of these AI image tools, whether it was OpenAI or whether it was something else. They selected this area of the painting and said autofill the rest. And then they posted it on Twitter. It probably took them a total of like 30 seconds. And this is a new functionality given by these kind of AI image generators and things like that. And people have been upset about this before, but this one really upset some people,
Yeah.
possibly because I don't know if this Donald Villager was either trying to be ironic and make a point about how bad AI is, which some people seem to think in the comments. So, like, if you read the comments, some people like what the AI did. Some people,
Daniel's tweet. Daniel's tweet cracks me up.
oh
AI
yeah,
is so inspiring. Showing us a world without AIDS. I,
yeah. So
um,
some people really liked it. Some people were like upset that the AI didn't do a good job, which I think is a funny take. They're like, oh,
yeah.
it didn't even draw people; it just drew squiggles. And I'm like, well, it did all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then some people were like reporting this guy.
Oh,
Or
hang on.
yeah,
Scroll up.
uh
Lots of people are angry about this, but I used AI to figure out how Keith would feel.
right,
He's
right.
happy with the outcome.
Yeah, he says he's thrilled. So you can see there's these this encapsulated a lot of what was already going on. So like people were like, "Hey, I finished the Mona Lisa," or "I finished this statue that didn't have a head. I put a head on it." Right? Like
Yeah.
you can do a lot of stuff like that easily with AI, and this
Yeah.
kind of really took the cake. I was trying to
And the
find
what just to what's so great about it to me, um, I think constraint is so powerful. Like so many guys got great at literally great at comedy because you couldn't say what you needed to say on Twitter for years. And now you kind of can, you get deboosted, whatever. But the constraint of I can't explicitly say it, so I have to find a clever way that you have to think about in order to understand what I'm saying. That's the essence of comedy. And this is an instance of, and we can talk in more detail about this, but like the fact that AI won't let you, it's way more constrained than like Twitter was, even at its worst. Like it won't let you touch anything remotely controversial. So the fact that he found a way to say this incredibly like taboo, incredibly like screwing with people thing using the tool and getting around it, I think is part of what makes it so brilliant and so funny. And it almost seems to me that like if they do come up with like a based AI that'll say whatever you want, something about like this type of funny will be lost because it will
right,
be just abundantly easy
right,
and
right.
any moron can do it.
No, yeah, and I mean, these AI image generators obviously recognized from the outset, hey, people could use this to make propaganda.
Yeah.
So, or to make images that are unsavory, let's say. And I think with good reason, right? There probably are certain images that you shouldn't do. We won't
Yeah.
get into them, but for the most part, like, they were like, okay, we're not going to allow pornography. We're not going to, and then they said, you know what? We got to crack down on copyrighted or living individuals, right? We can't have everyone making Pikachus and us get sued by Nintendo. So we got to lock down Pikachu.
Or
So,
libelous images of a person doing something that they, yeah,
right, you can't say, hey, I want to see the president doing X, Y, or Z,
right.
right? Um, and because they realized, hey, AI makes that very easy. You want an image of, Joe Biden eating a hot dog. Hey, it's real easy to generate that. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so for me, this kind of kicked off a few things in my head because what I thought about was, okay, 10, 20 years ago, we had Photoshop, we had stuff like that, but
Mhm.
doing this specific, whether it's a joke or a social experiment, I can't comment, but doing this kind of thing would have been prohibitively difficult.
Mm.
Um, Meaning it wouldn't have been worth the joke because you would have had to either hand draw and finish the actual work of art, which would have been a challenge, I'm sure. Only a couple colors, but it would have been hard. Or you would have had to like have some really good Photoshop skills where you like rotate the image and paste it in and get it in there just right, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't have taken that much time, maybe let's say a matter of hours to days, but it wouldn't have been worth it back then. Whereas
And
now
you
it took
would have,
a second.
yeah, and you would have had to have made the joke about Photoshop, and which I think is less of it.
Right.
It wouldn't ring the same bell as the soulless robot egregore did the finish the AIDS painting. There's it's so specific to this moment. And one of the points that I think it's making, and I said something like this on the timeline, but like it's a piece of art that, like, had it been completed, and this I think is ultimately why it's funny, and why both why it makes guys like us laugh and it makes people on the other side furious, is like, complete this painting and it's like this time capsule of like 90s pseudo African, like it would have just been kind of thrown on the pile with a bunch of other stuff that looks just like it, and it would have been like very very like cheesy and like of its time. And I basically said like it belongs in like a 90s McDonald's play place, like,
Hmm.
and that
Someone edited as seats in a bus. I'll see if I can find that. Yeah, here.
season plus. Oh my gosh. And yeah, and it's like and basically all of that whole thread, not just this painting, but that whole thread of like, oh, it makes me cry every time.
Hmm.
It was these paintings that were like not that good, but they had like some sob story underlying them that you're supposed to care about. And it's like you really like it's an interesting comment on like that whole phenomenon.
Hmm.
Like if you erase the sob story, what are you left with?
Yeah, and also I think there's several readings to this specific instance in that I saw some people who maybe look like they would have been upset by this, but their take was, wow, this really points out the dangers of AI, right? The
Right.
great
Right.
job pointing this out, sir. And so I see that, and I see also like, um it's a comment, potentially it's saying like, look how bad AI is that it doesn't understand art in the sense that you leave something unfinished intentionally or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so like, wow, artists really are better than AI because of that, and things like that. So I think there's different
It's
ways of
just
looking
like
at this.
it's just like Warhammer. It's like who's missing the point?
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
who's not media literate or whatever.
So is this which faction is this? No. Um, which faction would have painted this? Yeah. So, but it also got me thinking about like other instances of either AI art or just edited images causing controversy, right? And you had one,
Did I?
maybe not.
Wait, which what sorry,
There was
what?
a recent one with like charcoal that was edited.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That yeah, more like explicit propaganda. Basically, Ben Shapiro posts this like amorphous lump of like charred matter and says this is basically what Hamas is like. This is a barbecued baby, and this is sort of the wages of what's going on and how serious it is. And it turned out to be AI generated, and
Yeah.
and it's not some like this is um, physical warfare. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. I'll loop it back. Physical warfare varies in its speed and mobility and fluidity on the basis of the technology at hand. Like, Genghis Khan, uh, because of the stirrup and bows and arrows, is able to do this hyper mobile, like incredibly fast, incredibly expansive type of war that changed the course of history in his time. And then on the opposite end of that, you've got like World War I, where artillery's so good that the cavalry gets destroyed, and so everybody's like hunkered down in their entrenched positions, and progress is measured in feet. And I my thesis on what AI is going to do in psychological warfare is it's going to be trench warfare. It's going to be because any instance of like in the 20th century, people were so uh vulnerable to emotional appeals from far away because they didn't have this like muscle in their mind that's like, wait a minute, let me question what's being shown to me, let me question how this is being contextualized, because they'd never been exposed to a technology like that before that could show them this carefully curated set of facts from a place they've never been to. And particularly visual stimulus. And now what's happening is that that visual stimulus and the manipulation of that visual stimulus has essentially run its course to the point where anything can be depicted in perfect uh in perfect resolution, perfect fidelity to what you'd expect to see. And it doesn't have to not only like, so that you talked about or you mentioned this offline, but the Syrian kid on the beach, right? As far as I know, that like there was a dead kid, like that, there was a kernel of truth to the narrative that they were depicting. And the sort of story behind like how that's BS is like it was like isolating this one true thing, and apparently like they moved the body around, and it was kind of crass and
Well,
grotesque.
well, and
But
it
like but
is
like there's still
it's
a dead kid there,
yeah,
right?
it's terrible. Kid's dead, right? Like it's
Right.
a terrible image and it's a terrible thing. I still don't even like looking at it. But
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time, there's a war going on. There's dead kids all over the place.
Oh,
And
sure. And
why
there's dead kids
one
all kinds of places where there isn't a war. Like it,
exactly.
you know?
And horrible situations everywhere. But certain images last and certain images get pushed into the forefront, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like essentially the fact that you can falsify that completely at this point makes it so that uh there's really nothing for us to argue about with these visual stimuli anymore, because we can just be like, I don't know, probably made up. And I think it actually sort of, it helps people, like, I think in the future still most of these images that you're going to see will not be AI. They'll be real in some sense. But the fact that the AI exists creates this, like, this instinct to question, particularly a visual stimulus that conflicts with whatever your dominant narrative is, right?
Right.
I know right away, as soon as I see this image, might be fake.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you begin that thought process, there's actually a million ways it can be fake, right? It doesn't have to be just AI. It can be fake because, like we're saying, we're sort of pointing our camera at the one thing, and like or like the constant, like, uh racial conflict videos you see. It's like, who started it, and like, did he
Well,
say the N-word, and does he deserve to get beaten, and like all
right.
kinds of things like that.
Well, and even you know, I brought this up at one point. Even with like Black Lives Matter and like George Floyd, why is it that that case is the one when there was like more recent cases that were like worse, where
Mhm.
the victim of the police brutality was more angelic, let's say, like
Sympathetic, yeah.
a better sympathetic character. Um,
Freddie
so
Gray was the Lucy's guy, right? That got a rough ride in a van, I think.
yeah, yeah, and I think specifically there was the guy who was in the car with his wife, and he was like a black gun owner, and the police like asked him to, they like pulled him over and basically just like shot him,
Yeah,
even though like he was complying.
yeah,
And like he was like a father and like a stand-up guy in the community, and like yeah, and he, but there was video footage of that, so it's not just is there video footage, right, which was a big part of the George Floyd thing, but part of it is I think the visual propagandists that exist out there realized the problem with George Floyd is you're watching it, it's 6 to 10, 15 minutes where you're just sitting there and the guy's slowly dying and you're just with him as he's calling out for his mom. It's a terrible thing to watch,
yeah,
but super effective as propaganda.
yeah.
And
And it's this metaphor. It's this visual metaphor. The white power structure with its knee on the neck of the, like
yes,
it's telling a story.
and this may sound like kind of insensitive to certain listeners potentially, but also this is exactly how like leftists in academia talk about these things explicitly. Like they say, you know, they compare it. Yeah, there's this power structure, there's this symbolism, and they create symbols out of it.
Sure.
Statues and and things like that.
Yeah.
So they're thinking about it explicitly in those terms. Um, however crass that may be, right?
Yeah.
And certain images just kind of have a life of their own, like I showed like Tiananmen Square and things like that. Like, certain images just like mean something as soon as you see them,
Yeah.
and certain political actors are always on the lookout for those images.
Sure.
And so yeah, in thinking about all of that, you know, and on both sides, right? There was like the BLM riots. Everyone was like, we need to get the perfect image of the riots, right?
Yeah.
It's all about creating images. Those
Yeah.
riots were, um, and similarly, January 6th people, like there were so many images that came out of that, right?
And the facility of creating new images, I think, will dilute that signal. It'll make it so that it's less, um like there are certain things that if they weren't real, they would seem like parody.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
like if somebody AI generated the cop with his knee on the neck of a, you'd be like, oh, that's really heavy-handed. Like that's like,
Hmm.
and that's exactly what made the real image so powerful, is because it was like, wow, you can't imagine a more, it's like beyond parody, it's beyond like if you're a leftist and you have this concern about like police brutality and like race relations in America, you look at that image and you go like, I couldn't have composed you a more perfect encapsulation
Hmm.
of what I'm talking about, what my deal is. And I think, and it's partly that. It's also partly precisely the fact that it's on the edge, like as far as like how much fentanyl he had in his system, and how cooperative or uncooperative he had been, and sort of like
Like
how
it
he,
sets it up for conflict. Is that what you're
which
saying?
sets it up for virality, right?
Hmm.
Like there's not so much to argue about with Freddie Gray. We all kind of go like, yeah, that was wrong. Those cops should probably face some consequences, and that's it.
Right. There's no controversy. It doesn't get shared a bunch. It doesn't get argued over in comments at length. Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, back in my meme days, I just grabbed a screenshot from Twitter that somebody posted. It was a black girl had her car break down, and a guy with a Confederate flag tank top pulled over and changed the tire. That
Yeah.
I just shared that screenshot, and it had like millions of like 15 million views just from that. And so I would get the notifications of all the comments coming in, and all the comments were there. There were just canned responses
Mm.
where it was like, one of them was, even though he's being nice, he shouldn't be wearing that shirt, that's a bad shirt, and variations on that. And then
Sure.
it was like, you see that, even though he's wearing a bad shirt, he's still nice. and, and then that caused over 100,000 comments in that post that I
It's all
made.
the same.
It was the same two things said over and over. um and what I've realized as well is, if you want something to go viral, this is a tip to any of you looking to do like AI social media stuff, there has to be two canned camps at a minimum.
Yeah.
This camp and that camp, and it's very obvious what the take is, right? It
Yeah.
has to be obvious. If it's subtle, you have to like point it out. You have to be like, "Hey, this is the take." So that way people see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, subtlety and stuff like and nuance does not do well in virality, but very explicit, like, this is what you should think, this is, and so with like cop violence, it's always like, you know he should have complied, and the other side is the cop shouldn't have been so mean.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways that you can like just sort of throw slop to particularly like a right-wing crowd. One Anytime there's chaos, anytime there's upheaval and violence. I saw some guy do this just a couple days ago where he was like, I can't believe this. Where are the police? Because then the canned take is like the police don't give a shit and it's anarcho tyranny, and I like you got this ready
Yeah.
made loaded like response like, this guy's an idiot. I know why the police aren't there. And it's irresistible. It's
Yes.
irresistible. They have
Yes.
to say it every time.
Also, this is what people don't understand about trolling. What trolling is not just like being mean on the internet, it's being a master of that. So for
Yeah.
instance, I think there was this I found these sets of groups, and it was like Justin Bieber sucks groups. This was like early 2010s, right? So, and I was like, yeah, Justin Bieber does suck. So like I searched out the groups, and then what I noticed is there was a bunch of 13, 14-year-old girl accounts that were saying, you don't understand, Justin Bieber is better than Iron Maiden. And they'd say like these like way out of pocket things, and also things that I'm like, wait, a 13-year-old girl wouldn't know about these things. So what I
Right.
and then I like clicked on their accounts and like looked into it. These were troll accounts. And so like the people thought they were trolling Justin Bieber fans, right?
Right.
But the real trolls were
Right.
these fake Justin Bieber accounts that were trying to get this engagement just for the heck of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this wizardry they had of being like of taking this obviously ridiculous position that has a very easy canned response for the Justin Bieber haters. And so it's yeah, I use that as an example when people are like, so you're just a troll. And I'm like, I'm not a troll. Like, that's a different thing. Like, that's what
Yeah.
I used to be a troll when I used to play Diablo and I'd go to the Canadian chat room. I'm like 10. And I'd go to the Canadian chat room and I'd say, American beer is better than Canadian beer. And they'd be like, no, it's not. And I'd be like, yeah, but our New York Rangers beat your team in this day. Like we beat the Maple Leafs. I have no clue about any of this stuff. I'm not a beer drinker. I'm not a hockey fan. And I was 10 and I would go say these things that I knew would upset the Canadians. That's what trolling is.
Yeah.
But anyway, and speaking of which, kind of in this like meme space, and like with you what you would call like the meme wars, there's kind of like this time where you knowing how to use Photoshop or how to make a meme, just adding text to an image, kind of made you a wizard in the
Mm.
realm of online debate. Meaning, you could instantly win any engagement just by being like, here's an image of your face, but it says you're an idiot on it. You know what I mean?
What if I
Like,
depicted you as the NPC or
yeah, what if
yeah.
I depicted you as the sad Wojak and I am the yes Chad, right? And and yeah, that's like all it took, right? And it put you in another class above all the NPCs, right? You being able to make the meme. And so like, back in the day, I my brother had a stolen copy of Photoshop and I used to play around with that. So I knew how to make images, right? So and but now with AI, you don't even need that much skill to do that type of stuff. You just have to be good with the prompt, I guess, which I guess that is going to be the new skill that you're going to have to develop is knowing how to beat the AI and use the AI properly.
It's very, I mean, it's very much, in my opinion, like being good at Twitter
Hmm.
because it's not like a technical skill in the same sense that like learning how to like there's some guys who are going to get good at chat GPT because they're going to mess around with APIs and they're going to be like able to wire it up to stuff.
Hmm.
But there's another way to be good with it. Like, I mean, that's basically what that AIDS painting guy was doing is learning how to say something uh with the AI that the AI is not supposed to say. And I mean, the guys who have, I think there was a guy who like reverse engineered like Link from The Legend of Zelda or like some like clearly copyrighted character by just like sort of crafting the prompt
Well,
very
and they
carefully.
blocked Pepe's, right? And then someone was like, "Oh, you just type in cartoon meme frog."
Right, right,
And
right.
yeah.
And that's sort of the new meta of the game now is like how do you talk to the AI? But I also like that there's an extent to which like it is a new space, a new place to play, but I think it actually will sort of devalue a certain type of memeing altogether.
Hmm.
Um once it's and when anything becomes trivial to do, it stops being a useful signal. And I mean like I actually really hate the yes Chad because of the morons that use the yes Chad now. Like it's they sort of figured out that that was the game and then they just deploy it. And It no longer is like this kill shot like it used to
Hmm.
be.
You know,
And
I'm
so
the originator of the Yes Chat, right?
that's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
It's Chris.
No, no, no. I started it with the Mediterranean guy, and then someone else threw in PewDiePie. Yeah, the original was the Mediterranean.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, yep,
The med excellence. Okay.
yeah. Um, that's a classic Nordic trait, stealing from the meds. No, I'm just kidding. Um, we'll go into that one another day. Uh,
Nice.
but yeah, so I do think though getting skilled in AI is the new frontier for sure. Um,
Oh.
because everyone's going to have the AI, although a lot of people have no clue how to use it still.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
meaning if you know, okay, if you go to Bing AI, you get access to Dolly 3 for free. If you use Stable Diffusion in Google Colab notebook, you can do whatever you want basically. These
Hmm.
are some things that we go over in the class, by the way. Um, that kind of do set you apart in what you're able to do, right? Now, it's definitely more widespread than it was when it first came out, but um like I had access to GPT-3 a year before Chat GPT came out and nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody nobody had anything to say about it. And I'd show people, I'd be like, look, I wrote a Seinfeld script, but I wasn't doing anything interesting with it. So um excuse me. But yeah, so
It's
yeah,
interesting how people like there have been dramatic leaps in the power of the technology in the last couple of years,
mhm,
but I think more than that, what you are seeing is now that ordinary people have an interface with the technology, they're blown away by how powerful it is. But like you're kind of saying, people who were already sort of read in have had access to tools like this for significantly longer. It's not the compute, it's the interface that's transformed.
mhm,
And because when I'm enough of a data science guy that like I understand how some of the basics of this works. And when people tell me like, oh, this is like we're inches away from AGI, I'm like, no,
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 yeah, we're not.
this is a
This
lot
is
of
just better predict the next token. No, but
these
that's
are really
it's
good
not quite
regression
that
models.
because it's going to change when uh more tools get in the hands of these types of models. But
Hmm.
once it becomes a tool user, it's going to change things quite a bit because let's say instead of just saying, "Hey, you are a friendly chatbot who answers questions," what if you say, "Hey, you are a data scientist who works for this company. This is your name. This is your personality. Respond to all emails like this." You know what I mean? And then write code and send it to this person every whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that
Eventually, you know, the AI is going to be able to do your email job for you.
it's coming for you.
Yeah, but we'll see. Um to a certain degree, you know. Then you'll have to get like the video AI of have it be able to talk for you on Zoom. Then you're in business. But
I feel like I got doxxed like like 18 months too soon
mm,
because I had this vision of doing the what do you call it? What do you call it when the Twitch streamers are anime girls?
oh, the yeah. The
What's that called? VTubers, VTubers.
VTubers. I was like e-girls? No.
Yeah. I wanted to be a VTuber with the Bennett head and like have it talk, and that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
Uh, we
You could have done that 18 months ago, but yeah, it would have taken a bit of
oh, maybe
work.
I didn't know. Anyway,
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, I have one rant to go on.
Yeah, please.
The one of the things that bugs me the most about because I mean we've kind of talked about it hand in hand with the propaganda comes additional censorship from these things. One, I hate the chat interface for most of these things because the prompt, the system prompt is what it's called. So this is the prompt that the engineers give the language model and tell it how to behave with the end user who is you. And you're not allowed to edit the system prompt, right? Um, so what they tell it is you are a friendly assistant. You will be friendly and answer things all friendly like. It bugs the crap out of me when it's like, "Hello, I am here to help you with this thing." Um like shut up. Just produce the output I want. Don't tell me thank you. I'm not interested in reading made up words from a non-existent entity. You know what I mean? And then, you know what bugs me even more? The people who thank ChatGPT. Thank you, ChatGPT, for that. I'm very appreciative of it. It
Okay,
means nothing and does nothing.
but is it not the case that well, there's definitely, it seems like, ways that you can needle the AI to get what you want. And so like there's elements of like what you would characterize as like interpersonal interaction that actually can have an influence on whether or not you get what you are looking for, right? No?
Um, I'd have to see the specifics of an interaction. I don't think treating it like a human gets you any extra things. I think
Okay.
if you can trick it into if you can inject enough stuff to mess with the system prompt, then yes. But I don't think being friendly to it does changes anything.
No, probably not.
I don't think
Well, so
friendliness has any impact.
what I've heard is like okay, so I wanted it to I wanted it to make a trans GI Joe,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and it like steadfastly refused to do that until I was like, my trans daughter needs representation. She needs to see herself in the
For real?
yeah. And it worked. It worked.
That's
It
crazy.
gave me a trans GI Joe.
Yeah, it will happen because what's going to happen is how they're I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming knowing how AI stuff works, how they're training their models to stop making certain outputs is they're flagging malicious outputs.
Hmm.
And so if you don't look malicious, that could
Hmm.
change things. But I don't know if that has anything to do with friendliness. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm a stickler. But yeah, they're because what they're doing is they're saying, let's find the people trying to make the images of, Kirby running into the Twin Towers. Let's stop those guys. And so they kind of what they've done is they've marked flagged how that guy talks as bad,
Yeah,
right? And so you have to not talk like that to get the output right to come out.
right.
You know
I'm
what
a
I
good
ran
lib.
into recently? They've barred web scraping. They won't write web scraping code.
Huh. Why
Isn't
not?
that ridiculous? Because they say that you're not allowed to web scrape.
Okay.
Isn't that stupid?
That's crazy. That's the thing. Like aside from like a state enforced monopoly,
Mm.
it's really hard for me to see how this tech doesn't break containment. Like it
Well,
seems
and it's
like
already starting. Our mutual friend is working on it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's certain what and you know what's really interesting in the age of propaganda? You know who's leading the charge with
Who?
this are the AI waifu people.
That makes perfect sense.
They want their waifu in the specific
Man.
taste and position that they want it. And so they've done a lot to mess with and similarly the AI girlfriend
Hmm.
people because
Yeah.
they
Wait,
they
are those distinct camps? What's the
well,
distinction between
some
those
are
two
making
camps?
images, some are trying to have a conversation, some are probably doing both.
I see.
Um but yeah, the kind of the anime, and also it's just kind of like the pornography people, like once
Yeah.
again driving technology.
There's too much porn money to not. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's gonna be uncensored AI in those less savory corners of the internet for sure. But hopefully it's not all used, all not all wasted on AI waifus, but maybe that's a
Yeah, I
noble call.
actually so I wrote a short story that
Hmm.
got into Passage Prize about essentially an AI girl who uses sort of uses people's sympathy to accrue power, like their unwillingness to be mean to something that is shaped like an attractive girl.
Mm.
And when people talk about like runaway AGI, like dangerous AGI, able to manipulate human beings into like giving it the nuclear codes or whatever, um, there's like a certain type of girl. Um, Ale is a good example of this. There's also who's that girl at OpenAI? There's like a certain type of girl that's just like an apex predator of like tech nerds, and like
Yeah.
they're like attractive enough and they say the right things enough that they can just, I mean, they can just run circles around these like guys with Asperger's and just get them to give them whatever. And
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I remember early on in my career there was like I worked with a lot of guys who were like around my age, and some girl would show up and they knew they had them twisted around their finger. Can you
oh
do
my
this for me?
gosh.
Can you do that for me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so like when I imagine sort of malevolent, malicious AI getting people to do that, it's not Skynet. It's gonna be like a porn bot that's
Yeah.
gotten really good at telling guys what they want to hear and getting their vital essence, so to speak.
Yeah, this is where Anna de Armas is the bad person in Blade Runner,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. And it's that actually is a little scary to contemplate. Um yeah, and I think this goes to some religious convictions of mine, but like the sense in which just discerning truth with your eyes and ears is going to become way, way, way more difficult.
Yeah.
And and I think we are sort of being prepared for that, and it's going to be a filter. It's going to be a
Well, yeah.
bottleneck.
And I mean, deep fakes are already a thing, but like, we're gonna have just whole cloth video creation and stuff like that, and yeah, it's coming.
And
Um,
one of the things that I wanted to sort of convey in the story that I
mhm,
wrote was like nobody was really convinced by the AI bot. Like nobody really believed she was a person,
right.
but it was this like social fiction and this desire not to appear a certain way. And like in one guy's case, it was the fact that he was having sex with the robot, and like he could either think of himself in his mind as like this champion of this new civil rights category, or he could think of a guy who jerks off into a robot. And like that psychological tension made his choice obvious, even though it wasn't truthful and he wasn't really convinced by it.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of choice we're going to face, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I think kind of to round it out, I think AI is going to make trolling, propaganda, just bothering people way easier. Um, but I think you brought up an interesting point that potentially no one will care as much. But I do think there is just something powerful in images. There's something like, beyond the pixels of it
At a
that,
certain point, you can't get sophisticated enough. Like you're sort
yeah,
of limited by your hardware. Yeah, I think that's true.
yeah. And so there's going to be some issues coming up, to say the least. If you want to be ahead of the curve, you want to be a
Yeah.
wizard in the time of AI,
Shaolin.ai.
hey, join the boot camp. But speaking of which, do you have anything to shill, and or where should people look up your stuff?
Well,
As
yeah,
if
I mean,
I have a bigger audience than you.
the angle that I it's definitely like a post hoc angle because AI was not around when we started this thing, or it wasn't the thing that it is now.
Hmm.
But I am noticing the what is happening across the board is epistemic and social decentralization. People are no longer identifying with these big outlets for information, ways of connecting with each other. Like nobody uses Facebook. Um, I mean, not nobody, but like our guys don't use Facebook. And what is the sort of trench warfare, the sort of siege mentality that's being created by this avalanche of essentially spam, right? It's false signal. Uh, I think it's
Spam
gonna,
and AI generated lectures. There's a
yeah,
lot of that.
yeah, and it's driving people toward human judgment and human relationships. Like I no longer trust Amazon reviews,
Hmm.
so I kind of have to go back to like, what did my friend buy? Was it good?
Yeah.
And I think because Amazon reviews are totally spammable now. It's like impossible to
Right.
um and so exit is essentially what I think of as like a walled garden. It's a place for guys to come together and build things on that human basis uh, in a way that you can't do at a big accelerator or LinkedIn, certainly. Like it's a way to build on a human scale and at a human level of resolution, which that I think is the only stuff that's gonna make it through this this avalanche of fake fake news.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of exit, the quality of people there, outstanding. The only thing is
Thanks, man.
we're using AI to make it better to
Yes.
coordinate at exit, which maybe we'll talk about in another episode. But
Yes.
the exit bot.
Yeah, building out a essentially uh how do we connect the biggest problem in a group that with guys that have OPSEC concerns and who are busy and high agency and doing things is getting them to show up in a room together so they can see each other and see who's cool.
Yep.
And it's like when the guys come to a meetup, they're always like, "Whoa, I had no idea there were all these cool people here." And basically, the purpose of the exit bot is going to be you're going to be able to query it and say like, "Hey, who can help me plan an event?" And we've actually already got an MVP that can do that,
Hmm.
and it'll return, people who've done AV, people who've spoken at a lot of conferences, people who people who've like negotiated contracts, that kind of thing. Um, the the technological problem that we're addressing right now is how do we make this something that's accessible to the whole group without exposing the database itself? So we're working on the security thing, but the actual core of like, can I ask a bot about this group and get a coherent answer? That's solved. We've got that,
Yeah.
which makes my life quite a lot easier. So yeah, it's. I don't think that you can hide away from the technology. I think you have to
Hmm.
deploy it in a way that it's serving you instead of being your master.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, yeah, and I've talked to a few like creatives who are like worried about ChatGPT, and I tell them like, you honestly, you just be better served learning how to use it as a tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Good discussion today. We'll maybe cut it off here, but check out Exit Group. Check out uh Shaolin AI.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And thanks for coming on today, and it was
Yeah, thanks,
fun,
man.
and we'll have to
Great.
talk again.
All right, man. See you.